So my first job as a software engineer was crazy. I just learned how to code, and here I was working at a cybersecurity tech startup as a software engineer. Now, mind you, I had no computer science background, no cybersecurity background, and this was my first time working at a tech startup. So everything was brand new to me. And that's pretty much what I'm gonna be covering in this video. I'm gonna walk you through what making that career switch into being a software engineer was like in that very first year for me. So I'm gonna be touching on things like startup life, imposter syndrome, networking, just all of that, right? So if you're new here, my name is TJ and I'm a self-taught software engineer that teaches beginners how to code while also sharing stories about my experience in tech. All right, so definitely make sure that you watch this video all the way through because this story is going to be wild. And comment below any questions that you have about my first year as an engineer and I'll get back to you. Also, make sure that you subscribe to my channel for a lot more content like this. Now, quick trivia. How many engineers do you think were on the engineering team when I started working as a software engineer? And you know what? I'll give you options to choose from. 0, 1, or 3. Again, your options are 0, 1, or 3. Make sure you comment down your guess below, okay? All right, so after teaching myself how to code, I got my first job offer from a large company, Nationwide Insurance. But right after I accepted that offer, and I mean maybe 2 to 3 hours right after I accepted the job offer from Nationwide Insurance, I was actually poached by a startup in Austin when the founder hired me on the spot when I went to go meet with him without really even interviewing me, right? So that was crazy. And on my first day, and you know, this is for all the people that guessed how many engineers were on the engineering team when I started. The answer is 0. Yeah. The company had 0 engineers on the engineering team when I started. And when I asked the founder about that, he was like, see, what had happened was, I was like, sir, don't play. But no, I'm just joking. So pretty much this startup was using a contractor to help build their app. And the contract for that engineer was coming to an end, which is why the founder of the business was looking to now hire a full-time software engineer. And that's where I come in. So I was the only engineer at the company. Can you imagine just learning how to code, getting a job as a software engineer, right? Your dream job, everything you've been working hard for. You show up on your first day and you're the only engineer at the company? Like, how do you think you would feel? Because for me, the crazy thing is I was too excited to be scared. Like I felt so confident because I just achieved every single one of my goals at that time. Like I just learned to code, got a job as a software engineer in Austin with all my family and friends, doubled my salary, and on top of that, I got hired on the spot. Yo, I felt invincible. Like as if there was nothing I couldn't do, because making the choice to quit my job and take a chance at learning how to code and, you know, to try to become a software engineer, that was one of the scariest things that I had ever done in my life up until that very point. So even though I was the only software engineer at the company, I felt confident that I could figure out most of the things that I needed to figure out just by using Google, YouTube, and just working out to try to problem solve. And if I couldn't figure something out, then we'll just cross that bridge when we get there, right? Because remember, I just learned how to code. So there's no way that you can hire me and expect me, the new guy, to know everything. Like that just doesn't make sense. So I didn't even put that kind of pressure on myself. And that's where a lot of imposter syndrome comes from. Putting this unfounded pressure on yourself to be perfect, to always know everything, to always have all the answers and to never mess up. When in reality, no one even expects that from you. And the more experience that you get in tech and just working in general, one thing that you'll really just start to realize is that most people don't know anything. Like, matter of fact, there are only a few people at a company that really know what they're talking about half the time. Everyone else is just trying to figure it out just like you. So don't even put that unrealistic pressure on yourself to try to know everything and to always be right and to never mess up, because no one expects that from you. And the founder made that clear to me as well when he hired me. He just pretty much wanted me to be teachable and to be open to learning new things and to work hard to figure stuff out. And really, that's all that learning to code and being a software engineer is about. Learning new things, being teachable, and working hard to solve problems. Now, the first thing that happens when you start a new job as a software engineer is that you get your work laptop. So since this was a very small startup, me and the founder pretty much just drove to the mall and we went to the Apple store to buy me a brand new MacBook Pro with all the latest specs. And this is what you should expect too, actually. Well, I mean, not the whole driving to the mall part, but on day one, you are gonna be given your work laptop. And as a software engineer, it's most likely gonna be a MacBook Pro. So if you're learning how to code, don't feel like you need to buy a brand new laptop, because once you make that career switch, the company that you work for is just gonna give you one. But if you are on the market for a new laptop, I would recommend buying a certified used or refurbished MacBook from Apple, Amazon, or a place called Back Market that sells them for real cheap. And I'll put that link in the description as well. So now, once I got my work laptop, the company then gave me access to their GitHub. And GitHub is where all the code is stored, right? So now I could pretty much download the code base and start playing around with the application on my computer. The founder helped me to get set up, and he gave me a demo on how our software actually worked, showing me different parts of the application and also showing me which part of the code base was the most important for me to focus on and try to understand first. And again, this is what typically happens during your onboarding process. When you start working as a software engineer, you are going to be given your work laptop. Then you are going to be given access to the GitHub where all the code is stored. And once you have the main application downloaded onto your computer and set up, someone is typically going to walk you through the code base and show you how the application works so that you at least have some basic idea of what's going on with the app. Now, one of the things that was overwhelming when I first started was how big the code base was. Like, the code base for a company is huge. And I'm talking hundreds of files and folders, right? Which is a lot different from the portfolio projects that I built, because those were very small applications that were only like a few files and folders big. So that was a bit overwhelming at first, but something that you'll quickly realize is that most of the stuff that you're gonna be working on is only really gonna reference just a couple of files and folders. So trust me, don't be scared whenever you see a huge code base. And yeah, you are gonna be spending a lot of time Googling. Like, you learning how to Google is pretty much one of the most important skills you can have as a software engineer, because you're going to be Googling and researching everything, especially if you're in a situation like me where I was the only engineer at the company. So I didn't really have someone to ask questions to and to bounce ideas off of. Most people, when they get their first job, most people are going to be working on a team with other engineers. So you will always have people there to ask questions to and to get help from anytime you get stuck. But I will say my experience being the only engineer there helped me to get really fast at learning new things, because my job required speed out of me. And that's what comes with working at a startup. Things just move at just a much faster pace. And a good example of how crazy the pace at a startup can be is my boss would come into work in the morning with an idea for a brand new feature, and then he'll be on a client call in the afternoon on the same day while I'm working on writing the code to build out the idea that he just came up with. And randomly, he'll just stop me and tell me to push up whatever I have to production so that he can show it to the client. Mind you, I barely just started. I probably need like a couple more days until I'm done building out the feature. Like, do you know how scary that is? Right? Like those moments were crazy because I definitely broke the app, like a lot actually. But keep in mind, every engineer has a story about breaking production, right? Like at this point, that's just part of your experience of being an engineer. And the CEO, he knew that I wasn't done working on what I was working on and that the app would probably break. But he just wanted to show the client that we were currently working on something new and exciting as a way to sell the client. And believe it or not, that strategy actually kind of worked, right? Like we were able to sign quite a few clients that way. You know what? The crazy thing is, I just realized I never explained to y'all what the startup I worked at actually did. So the startup was called ThreatCare, and the founder was a black man named Marcus Carey. And he was one of the few black CEOs in Austin at the time, which is why I wanted to go meet him. Because there were probably like less than 5 black tech CEOs in Austin at this time. And he was also a Navy vet, and he used to work as a hacker for the NSA. So this guy's a pretty big deal. And he's also very well known in the cybersecurity world. But now, instead of working as a hacker for the US government, he was using his skills to help companies be more secure by building an application that helps companies test their security products to make sure that those products work correctly. So you might not really know this, but to reduce the chances of being hacked, companies spend a lot of money buying different security products and tools to monitor for suspicious activities on their network. But the issue is, companies don't really have a good way to test these security products to make sure that they're actually going to work in a real life situation until they get hacked, right? But that's where we come in, right? So our startup, like our app, mimics hackers on your network and tries to perform different bad actions that a hacker would normally try to do if they were able to hack into your network. And the whole goal here was to make sure that your security products could actually catch this behavior and report it to you. So example, if you're a bank and you store credit card information, you will likely have a software product that monitors for what's called credit card exfiltration, which is when someone tries to steal credit card data off your network. Our app works by connecting to your network using Wi-Fi and then attempts to send out credit card data to make sure that your security tools prevent it from happening, or at least catches it and reports it to you so that you can do something about it. So every day, our sales team was talking to a lot of big name companies and trying to sell our product. And man, oh my God, you'll be surprised at how many big companies you think are secure that actually don't have good security systems in place at all. Like it's like actually mind blowing, which is why all these companies keep getting hacked. But anyways, let's talk about the fun part of working at a startup. So I would usually get to the office around 9 a.m. And remember, this was back in 2016, right? Before COVID, when most engineers still worked in the office. And our office was in downtown Austin. Matter of fact, we rented a house in downtown Austin and we used that as our office space. This house was called the Hacker House. And because we were in downtown Austin, oh man, lunch, I love lunch. Like lunch was always fun because we were always trying out new foods and the company almost always sponsored lunch, right? So I ate for free. And sometimes me and my coworker would actually take breaks and go longboarding around Austin to relieve stress and then come right back to work. And after work, which was typically around 5:30 for me, right? There were lots of fun happy hours and just tech events constantly happening in Austin. So I would usually check out some kind of tech event or happy hour after work at least twice a month. Because even when you get a job as a software engineer, you should still be networking and meeting different people and learning about different opportunities. Like, don't wait until you need something to start networking with people. It's always a lot easier to network when you have a job versus when you're unemployed, all right? Now, I could work remotely whenever I needed to, but everyone mostly worked in the office, and this was expected. I also had unlimited PTO, but since I was the only engineer at the company, if anything major happened, I was still the one that would get a call. So I was technically on call 24/7, kind of. But this only happened once my whole time there. And I did not wake up, y'all. Like, I was knocked out. Like, I was just passed out Saturday morning. And when I woke up, I had like 10 missed calls and a bunch of text messages, and man, I felt bad. But everything was fixed and taken care of. As soon as I read those messages, I knew exactly what the issue was, and I just fixed everything, all right? And that took less than an hour on a Saturday morning. So really, being on call is really not that bad. Well, for me, it wasn't. But hey, comment down below if you've ever been on call at your job, and let me know if you have any crazy on-call stories, all right? Now, some of the most challenging moments for me were the rare occasions when I couldn't figure out how to build a feature the founder was asking for. And I would just spend days and sometimes maybe like a whole week just stuck, right? Because it was just me, and I didn't really have anyone else there to really help me when it came to engineering. And even though that was tough, I didn't really have a fear of being fired because it's just me and I'm new, right? And just because I don't know this one thing doesn't mean I don't know anything, right? Plus, if you fire me, now you have nobody, right? So the fear of being fired wasn't really something that made sense in that situation. But anytime I did get stuck and I couldn't figure something out, my boss would just ultimately, pivot, and we would just go a completely different direction, I mean, what can you do? Anyways, the highlight of my time at this startup was the fact that we were accepted into one of the top startup accelerators in the world, Techstars. And I was lucky enough to go through that program with the founder. Man, I learned so much. If you don't know what a startup accelerator is, it's a program that you apply to if you have a startup idea or company, and the program connects you with experts to help you build your company, giving you resources to help you move fast and grow your team. And best of all, they connect you with investors and give you an opportunity to pitch in front of hundreds of investors during an event called Demo Day. Now, Demo Day is where all the startups in the accelerator get to pitch their startup idea to the audience. This is how a lot of companies raise money. And getting into a startup accelerator like Techstars, who is arguably the #2 startup accelerator in the world, is a major stamp of approval on your startup idea. But quick question, do you guys know what the #1 startup accelerator in the world is? If you do, comment down below, right? Like, comment down below what you think is the #1 startup accelerator in the world. Now, being in Techstars was a really cool experience for me because, y'all, I was constantly hanging out with millionaires, investors, startup founders, business people, and man, it just really made me realize that I too can do this, right? Because there was nothing special about anyone in those rooms. Like, there was nothing special about anyone that I was interacting with in those programs, because they were all just regular, everyday people that just so happened to be taking a risk and trying to build their startup idea. So that experience helped build my confidence, and it really helped me to understand that I too can take my business ideas and turn them into reality. Anyways, I left this company after only working there for 11 months. Now, why, you ask, would I leave if I was having all this fun, right? Well, the main reason was because I wanted to get more experience working on an engineering team where I had senior software engineers, test engineers, and just other experienced engineers that I could learn from to help me become a better software engineer overall. It is very important that you spend your first 2 years at least as an engineer really focused on learning and improving your engineering skills, all right? Anyways, the crazy thing is, when I started my new job, y'all, we ended up being on Shark Tank. Like, how crazy is it to go from a startup in Techstars to now another one and you're on Shark Tank? And we made a deal with one of the sharks. But that's a story for another day, right? So make sure that you subscribe to my channel if you like this story. And like this video. Also, comment below any questions that you have about my first year working as a software engineer, and I'll get back to you. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.